Good evening, everyone. This is another episode special tonight with David Johnson Rayner from Core Sports. I'll wait for him to come on and other guests to come on. Again, on Monday night at 8 o'clock, we have four new fantastic guests, all women show again. It was really good on Monday night with the rest of the women. And it was really good to hear their insight into mental health as well. So any questions again are welcome tonight to David or myself, and we'll try to answer them. As I say, we're back on Monday night at 8 o'clock, so make sure we can tune in. Tonight or tomorrow, hope to make a really big announcement for next week's live special. It'd be an unbelievable guest. I'm just waiting for it to all be confirmed and sorted. So please look out for that for next week's live. Apart from that, let me get David on. 1 second. Evening.
Evening, Jamie. How you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
Yeah, really well, mate. Thank you. Really well. My football team won tonight, so happy days.
I just see that. Yeah, I just see that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
makes a change. Makes a change.
yeah. It might be probably get Champions League now, won't you? Hopefully.
Well, yeah, guaranteed Europa now. We've just got to hope the results go our way, or we can beat Man United on the last day, because I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Mm. Yeah, so yeah, it's been an on-off season, obviously for everyone, but
Yeah,
getting there in the end. You know what I mean?
it's great to have them back, mate. Great to have it back.
Mm. So yeah, for everyone tuning in, who's going to look back, obviously the first question, who are you? How did we meet? And what do you do?
Dave Johnson from Koi Sports. We're a social enterprise, and we drive commercial investment into grassroots sport to deliver positive social change. You and I met through a mutual contact, Dave Dueno, with regards to your work with the six-a-side national team. So we're currently trying to help you find sponsorship. So it's gone out to our champions, and I notice a couple are on here tonight. So we're just looking to use our network to try and bring that money in for you for next year's World Cup.
Yeah. So, first question, what I say to everyone before we obviously go into a little bit more detail, obviously on mental health. But what does mental health mean to you?
It's massive. I mean, I left my wife for a number of reasons. That was hard. It was tough because I left two children behind. And that has effect on anybody, male or female. And so I fell into some kind of, I hesitate to call it depression, but some kind of low. I couldn't potentially take anything in that people were saying. I could hear it, but I couldn't take it in. Couldn't understand it, couldn't process it. So I just kind of went into a shell. And thankfully for me, with the help of some friends, I managed to pull myself out of it.
Yeah. Normally on a special, it's a little bit different, obviously, from the Monday shows, which I know you've been tuning in, and Caroline, who's one of the people in here tonight. Normally, what we do is we allow the person to speak about maybe their experiences of mental health, themselves, or maybe if it's affected them from a family member or friends, etc. And then obviously throughout, hopefully there's some questions from people what are watching or myself. So I don't know, you can be as open as you want, and as I say, it's all about if you want to be open with it. So I don't know if you want to touch on maybe the story a little bit, how mental health obviously affected you a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, what we're doing now at Koi Sports has a massive mental health focus to it. It might not be at the forefront of what we do here in the UK. It certainly is it certainly is over in Colorado, where we're doing some work over there. But you know, my experience of poor mental health And to be honest with you, Jamie, I don't mind opening up at all. I mean, when me and my ex-wife had our first child, she went into postnatal depression, and I was able to take some credit for helping her out of that situation. So I've kind of seen it from both sides,
Yeah.
and I've seen how important it is really that you find somebody to talk to, you know, whether that be a friend or a member of the family, or if you need to go and seek independent help. But yeah, I mean, they're tough times for everybody involved. It's not just the person who's suffering with mental health. Jamie, it's those other people, you know, family, friends, kids sometimes. You know, it's a horrible place to be, and I don't want that. I don't want that to be something which people aren't aware of, because that kind of spiral downwards can be a gradual one, and you don't even know it yourself sometimes. The whole mental health thing can just creep up on you and then slap you in the face. Before you know it, you know, you're in a place of despair. And when you look at sport, especially where professional sports players, footballers, any kind of elite athlete really come out of that professional game, especially if a career's ended early. You know, there's that going from a very tight bubble with that support and your teammates and the club looking after you to, in some instances, just kind of being left on your own, and there you are. A fantastic career ended, or the potential for a fantastic career ended. And we've spoken with many footballers, especially who speak about, and they come out of that these days with a lot of money, and that money takes them to certain places, some good, some bad. And it's important that, you know, there's a network there to support those people. And I am talking about the professional game at the moment, whereby you can build a support network for them outside of the sport that they're in. In the grassroots sports game, you know, it's one of those. I mean, it's not relevant to the UK, but the example over in America, which is why we're doing what we're doing over there, is that you have many promising elite athletes who disappear off the radar, and nobody knows where they go. And you know, if somebody bothers to go and find them, I think it's something like 7 out of 10 cases of that happening are due to poor mental health. There's no support function there. And like the questions I asked of other guests that you've had, you know, it was really important to understand and find out from people, no matter who they are, you know, what's the best thing to do? How did you get around it? How did you get over it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's an interesting one, but a sad one, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's about having a support network around you, and making sure that's it.
Sorry, I'm just reading. Cameron 130 said, I'm a good goalkeeper and I feel like coaches don't give me chances in football because of my anxiety.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a hard one to obviously to say, but they shouldn't put a stigma around obviously mental health or anxiety. So I'm sorry, obviously, Cameron, that you've had that in the past, but from my point of view, obviously, of being the England six-a-side manager and also obviously being a coach at 11-a-side, I would never discriminate against or not give somebody a chance because they've maybe had a mental health issue. So for me, the people what have done that, Cameron, I don't feel is right or fair for you or anyone else what may have gone through that.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so obviously the next question, obviously with COVID-19, it's a major talking point of mental health coming out of it. Do you feel if COVID-19 hadn't happened at this time and they wasn't talking about mental health, would you think the awareness or would have been as to the front mind of people than obviously if it hadn't happened?
I think it's an interesting one. I think yes, it would have been there, because I think it will always be there. I think COVID-19 again has brought it to a head, and probably perversely has done the mental health awareness cause a lot of good, because you can understand 100% why the people in lockdown would suffer with mental health. You know, relationships break down if you're in each other's pocket, and if you're in and around the four walls, which is one of the reasons I moved into sales when I was employed. It drives me insane, you know. And God, can you imagine? I'm quite fortunate. I've got a garden. You know, I can go into that garden, and get out of the house. But for those who don't have that luxury, you know, to be stuck in and you know only allowed out for a certain period of time, yeah, I can fully understand that. But I think to answer your question, Jamie, I think it's good because it's brought more people to talk about it, like yourself, and more people to listen because you know they're more likely to join these types of conversations and can probably relate to it as well.
Do you feel the stigma has got better over the years around the word mental health? Maybe not. We'll touch on that first. Just in general, do you feel the word in the world, the word mental health has got better, or do you feel there's still a stigma behind mental health? The word.
Yeah, I think it's better received and probably easier to talk about. But I don't necessarily think that's made it any better. It's a good question. Stigma is going to be attached to something, but the more people talk about mental health, the more it becomes the norm. The more people admit, especially the high-profile people who, you know, can catch the headlines. You know, if they can come out. Still hear me, mate?
Yeah, one sec. Let me just.
Jenny.
I don't. The connection was playing up there, so yeah, I'll get Davey back in. Hopefully, the connection will be better. Sorry about that. If anyone has got any questions, more than happy for me or David to try to answer them.
Hey, mate.
You right there? Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, yeah.
just
That's
cut out
okay.
there, mate.
Yeah, I think it's my end. Yeah, I think you know it will always carry a stigma to answer your question. But I think the more people talk about it, the more high-profile people that come out and talk about it, becomes more accepted, and the stigma lessens. But I mean, Cameron mentioned about it. You know, he's in his question or in his statement. I mean, he was happy to say that he's got anxiety. You know, and that's a great thing. You know, the fact that some idiot's not taking any notice of it. That's the downside of it all. Somebody comes out and admits they've got a problem and you know penalised for it. That's bang out of order.
I've spoken about it with a few guests. Obviously, do you feel within coaches or management teams, are they not thinking about players' mental health as much as they should, or has it got better again over the years? Because obviously it is a results business. Look, we understand that they have a stress, they have a job. If they don't get results, then the chairman's going to put pressure on them, and they may end up getting a sack in general. So, do you feel they should worry about players' mental health as more, or do you feel they have a hard job themselves to do, so they just need results?
Yes, I mean my answer to that question would be the fact that if somebody performs better with better mental health, it would be in a coach's or a manager's interest surely to take the pressure off of them to having their players play with good mental health or you know not worse mental health, if that makes sense. So they perform better on the pitch, which then hopefully takes the pressure off of the coach and the manager. But I would imagine different coaches and managers handle it in different ways, some good, some bad. I don't really operate in that area personally, so it's a bit tricky for me to say. But my opinion is it's in their interest to make sure you know players are well, both of
Yeah.
sound body and mind.
Obviously, we spoke about obviously the stigma behind the word. Do you feel, from a male point of view, has got better over the years? Obviously, because you know, like if you're in a dressing room with a male footballer and team, do you feel it has got better? Obviously, I spoke to Caroline and the other people who are around majority of the time, football players in the dressing room or the other three guests were in with physios, and they said sometimes they feel like they are their person they could speak to as a physio, but they don't feel that still at times that players could talk to each other.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's more acceptable to do that now, but there's still that masculine thing that gets in the way of some people. And it's a long time ago when I was in my 20s, but I do remember not wanting to show any form of weakness. That would be to friends or anybody, just because I wanted to appear to be the best that I could possibly be. And I don't believe I had any mental health issues back then. But I think from a man's point of view, if that masculinity thing is important to you, that image, then yeah, it's going to be harder to talk up about it.
Yeah. Caroline said, "What motivated you to establish Core Sports?"
It's a long, well, it's only 18 months, but it seems a long time ago now.
Mm.
The motivation for starting it was I wanted to work within the sports sector. I wanted to have an effect on reoffending. So Core Sports really started out as an initiative to fund taking a more of a different variety of sports into prison, to try and engage inmates and give them, if they didn't like football, they didn't like basketball, they weren't into working within the gym or boxing to a point, we could offer more in there. Then that would hopefully spark an interest, which would hopefully help them to, when they transition through the gates, to pick up on an interest that was more healthy than unhealthy. So that was the initial thing. But you know, if I'm 100% honest, I was fortunate enough through a lot of hard work in my employed life to actually go after a little bit of a vanity project. You know, I wanted to meet the likes of Wes Morgan. I'm a big Leicester City fan.
Yeah.
I wanted to meet all of them. And then that kind of spread from, again, into football through conversations with one of our directors now, Gifton Noel Williams, and just getting to know him and speak to him about his career and go and watch a couple of matches with him and listen to him talk about what was going on the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to spread my wings and speak to sort of more people who I never thought I would ever get the opportunity to speak to. But it was always been in the back of my mind to make this Coy Sports, not Coy Football. So again, I've been fortunate enough to deal with Olympians, athletes, boxers, American football players, rugby players, triathletes, blind swimmers. You know, it's been a fantastic journey, and that inspiration really just stemmed from a love of sport.
From seeing obviously within all these sports, do you feel now, as I said, that it's you touched on it a little bit, that it has got better with the mental health side of it, or the mentality or people's mentalities to sport? Do you feel it's a massive part in all sports now, to be mentally strong, and not listen to the negative sides of everything?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a massive part of it now. It's all about mindset, all about positivity, and you know, to believing yourself to be the best or on a pathway to be your best. So strong mental health is important if you're going to perform at the top of your game. But you look at the likes of Gary Speed, for example, that's such a sad case. You know, he was performing at the very top level as a coach and as a manager. And the hell he must have gone through to eventually commit suicide. Wow. You know, to have performed at your best with that kind of thing sitting behind the smile. Wow. Yeah, no, can you imagine? And I'm sure he's not the only one who's been in that. I'm not saying going to commit suicide, but you know, are suffering with mental health, but people can't tell. People think that they have this most fantastic life, and you know, they don't understand. Why would they?
No, because they just see the outside of it. They don't see what's inside your head, because they don't. Sometimes, or you can't see what's inside someone's head unless they do open up or they do say, "Look, this is what I'm thinking or feeling."
Absolutely, and that's the thing, isn't it? If you can encourage people to talk, then that's half the battle, I think.
Do you think, obviously you touched on it with your mental health, etc., and stuff like that. Did you go to counselling yourself, or what was your thoughts to get through it? Was it friends around you? Was it family members? Did you go and speak to a counsellor or a specialist in general?
Yeah, I mean, I did the typical thing of keeping it to myself, but then, you know, trying to decide in my head once I recognised I got the idea, got an issue.
Mm,
Was, you know, how do you do it? Well, if you're poorly, you go to the doctors. So I went to the doctors, and they put me on some medication and referred me on to a counsellor.
mm,
I went to one session with that counsellor and could have walked out after 5 minutes, absolutely rubbish.
yeah,
Um, but that's because it probably wasn't for me. For
yeah,
somebody else, that might have been exactly what they needed.
mm,
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You don't go, okay, you're poorly, you go to the doctors, and if that doesn't work,
mm.
then I've had it. You know, you have to have those family and friends. But from my point of view, it's definitely the friends that dragged me out. One friend in particular, just took the time to listen and took the time to watch out for me and make sure that I was in the best place that I could possibly be. And then just being there to listen. And I think that's a massive thing. Having somebody to talk to is genuinely listening, Jamie.
Yeah.
If they're genuinely listening, mate, you've got half a chance, I think, because if they're able to help, they will. And if they don't, maybe they can make some suggestions as to what you can do.
A lot of people have said this. They turn around and said, obviously, one, it's finding the right person for you as a person who's going through mental health to talk to. Two, also, a lot of people have turned around and said, even though they're specialists, it doesn't suit them to
Mm.
go to counsellors. Why do you feel it may be, or in your opinion, why do you feel going to a counsellor didn't work for you?
I think it's because they didn't know me. And
Mm,
it was almost in my head, it was, why on earth am I talking to you? You haven't got a clue.
yeah,
You obviously and clearly understand about mental health, but that might just be from a textbook.
yeah,
How much. And I think that comes down to the fact that it was a young person I was talking to.
mm,
And so in my head at the time, it was, well, how on earth can you understand? And the questions you're asking are clearly off of a tick sheet.
mm,
And you notice all of these things because you're very acutely tuned into that situation because you're feeling it and you're living it.
yeah,
And I don't think it worked for me because it was probably the wrong counsellor. Unless you've got lots of money, you don't have the luxury of going and choosing a counsellor that you have. This
mm,
was NHS, and I've got a lot of time for the NHS, which is why I think it wasn't the individual.
mm.
It was the fact that it was the wrong individual for me.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that at times. Obviously, yeah, as I said again, it's finding that right person to speak to, and as you say, it's finding the right thing to do for you again at the time.
Mm.
For me, my dad, obviously, I've touched on it a few times. My dad was sectioned. He ended up being in there for 5 6 months. Still struggles here and there now, which is a normal thing. You're never gonna go over. It's just finding the techniques at times to get through the day and everything like that. But me, touching on the aftercare of that, I didn't think it was good enough that unless we rung, they and said, "Oh, he's going through a bad time. I don't know if the medication's working." That's the only time they ended up changing the medication, and
Right.
it felt like for me it was like he was in there for 5 6 months. He's better than what he was. Now we're going to move you out, and unless you ring us to let us know it's not working, then then it's okay. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
at times, I'm not knocking, as I said to you, I'm not knocking the NHS because they're so busy, and we get that. But it just felt like he was like a number at times,
Mm.
and it was just like, okay, well, he's better now. He's better than some of the other people, so I'm gonna discharge him from the facility, and unless you ring us, then we just think it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's wrong, mate. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That
Mm.
shouldn't be like that. It really shouldn't.
Yeah, it's just frustrating because he had improved from the moment he went in there to what he obviously is now, and he was also obviously when he come out of there, he had improved, but it just felt sometimes the aftercare, because people are so busy within the sector and so thing and that, and there's not enough people, I feel. And sometimes, as I say, as we touched on it, the counsellors are so busy with many different people what may be struggling. It's hard for them as well. So I would never knock them. It just felt like that situation was that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think that's that whole thing about how do you treat any number of mental health issues with equal, what's the word, with equal care.
Mm.
So, at some point, I mean, yeah, the best way I can liken it to is a prisoner's journey. So you go into prison, the moment you go into prison, there's a pathway mapped out for you about how you're going to spend the next 5 years, for example.
Mm.
Once you've hit that 5 years, they've done the best that they can do, and then you're released out back into society. And yeah, then you have probation. But, in my experience, you need more than that. So you liken that to your dad's story. It's
Mm.
almost as if they'd taken your dad down a pathway, which was a prescribed pathway,
Yeah.
with that additional care, I would
Mm.
imagine, that he
Mm-hmm.
went through. But then to release somebody and assume that they're going to be fine and just leave it to them. I mean, he was fortunate that he had you guys around him.
Mm.
Would he actually have reached out for help if you hadn't been there to help support him? And that's that personal care, isn't it? Rather than just tarring everybody with the same brush.
Yeah, Caroline's just said it. If you have diabetes, you have a regular checkup. The same should happen with people who have been diagnosed with poor mental health. I agree. I think, yeah,
Absolutely.
it should be 100% because it is an illness in the end. I don't think, from my point of view, I don't think people still to now see it as an illness.
Mm. No, I think you're right. Yeah.
They don't see it as an illness. They see it as that word mental health. So it's mental health is in a stereotype word, is somebody's gone mad or somebody's crazy. They don't see it as an illness where people are struggling and they need help.
Mm. No, you're right. And I think a lot of the questions you asked up to this point kind of were leading on to that. I think, Jamie, that's really clever questioning. And I think it is. It's that whole, it's the whole approach to mental health. Is it, I mean, it's like a migraine. I've had migraines. I think probably everybody has at one point or another, and it does properly lay you up. But then some people will take advantage of the fact that a migraine can lay you up, and will, let's say, ring into work and say, "Not coming today. I've got a migraine." Well, they haven't. They've got a bad head.
Mm.
It's that differential between, if you've got a mental health issue and you're suffering, it's those that say, "Oh, I'm feeling really stressed today." Well, yeah, you probably are, but you're not overly stressed to the point where at a breaking point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really
That
really good one.
that probably leads me on to the next question as well. Some people have said it on here on the lives as well. They believe sometimes mental health, the word mental health, is used too often.
Yeah,
Do you feel that is the case?
yeah, definitely, definitely. So some things become fashionable. It's fashionable. It's going to sound really weird. It's fashionable to have a mental health problem. That's how some people see it, because it can be the thing of the moment, and some people like to be in or believe or have other people believe that they're in the thing of the moment. And so yeah, it kind of lessens that um, yeah, the impact of somebody actually really admitting that they are struggling to the point where they do need help.
Mm. Sonia said, I have diabetes, and I don't get that. Believe me, I'm fighting through all the time. Well, that's a shame because, again, as I say, I would never knock, obviously, NHS or the doctors or anything like that. But it should be regularly checked. You know what I mean? And it's a shame that you're not getting that. Actually, Sonia's one of the guests on Monday night's show, so obviously we can speak about some of the issues around that as well, on Monday night's show. But it's a shame that you're not actually getting the regular checkup that you deserve, really, as well.
Can I just say something on that, Jamie?
Yeah.
I think sometimes you do have to go knocking on the door. You know, if you feel that, I mean, there's two opposite sides of the story there, isn't there? Caroline saying that she gets regular checkups, and then Sonia saying that she doesn't. And I think if you should really go be knocking on that doctor's door and saying, why am I not? You know, just keep asking the question. It's easier said than done. I understand that. I'm not belittling anything or anybody, but I think in cases like that, that's totally wrong, and you should be going and asking why you're not getting looked after, because they do have a duty of care, don't they?
Yeah, of course, and it's frustrating, isn't it, as well, that they're not getting that, or you're not getting that at the time. With mental health within general, obviously, with sports and performance, etc. Do you feel has got better over the years, that people are focusing better on mental health?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think if you look at people, and you have to excuse the phrase, but people being locked up in nut houses, things like that, thankfully that doesn't happen anymore. And the sorts of treatment that people used to get to treat a mental health condition, thankfully that doesn't happen anymore. And so I think it has got better, because it had to. All of that type of stuff that used to happen back in the day was totally wrong. So yeah, I think it's a lot better now. It's just that admitting of the fact that you have a mental health problem and recognising the fact that you do before you sort of hit rock bottom, if you can.
Do you feel that they've done slight, obviously, at the moment with COVID-19, and that Prince William has done a documentary thing on mental health and going into clubs and stuff like that? Do you feel this needs to be a sustained campaign, not just a mental health week, so like a week, or now at the moment people are thinking about people's mental health, so as you just said, it's the it thing at the moment to say, look, somebody might be struggling with mental health, so we get on the bandwagon and we'll promote it for now. But do you feel it's got to be more than 1 or 2 week thing, an actual sustained campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. Sustaining of anything that's good is definitely the right thing to do. So the sustaining of grassroots sport, which is what we work to drive investment into, sustain and grow and enhance. It has to have, it has to be at the forefront, because you're talking about people's health. It's not physical health, it's mental health. But of course, that can then have an effect on your physical health, and that then becomes an even bigger problem. So to have the royal family or anybody else constantly talking about it, okay, it might lose a bit of impact, but if you've got the right people punching out that story, it's going to stay at the forefront of people's minds. And lobbying of government and what have you as well to act in the best possible way that they can, and look at different ways of helping people, and continually looking at different ways in which you can treat different cases and different sorts of mental health and different sorts of people. So it's a really complex field, and without that that celebrity feel, if you like, you worry that that's not going to continue outside of, for as long as it's the watchword, for as long as it's the you know, people are hearing. It's got to be kept up there. So important, Jamie.
Yeah, we touched on it definitely on Monday night a little bit as
I'm
well
losing you,
about.
mate. Sorry.
You got me? Can you hear me? Hello. We'll go back in with David when he comes back in. Yeah, so really interesting chat so far with David. I'll add him back in. Just waiting for it to connect again. what we do is we'll go out and we'll come back in, and we'll finish off the discussion with David. Please come back in, whoever's in here, and obviously David, come back in as well. I'll see you in a second.